Sarah. I flew home for Christmas thinking I was a beloved daughter, but 10 hours later, I was staring at a spreadsheet that proved I was just a walking ATM. $68,000. That wasn't the cost of a mortgage. That was the price tag on my family's love. Sarah, narrator. My mother begged me to come home for the holidays. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I am 30 years old, and like a fool, I actually thought this Christmas might be different. To understand why I ended up standing in the snow with a suitcase full of regrets, you have to understand where I was before I got into the car. I was in Chicago. I was sitting in a glass office on the 42nd floor, looking down at the city lights that looked like frozen stars. I have a career that people envy. I have a salary that allows me to buy imported wine and Italian leather. But on that Tuesday, the silence in my apartment was not peaceful. It was heavy. Then the telephone rang. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. My mother, Linda, was on the screen via video call. She was sobbing. It was not a quiet cry, it was a performance. She told me how much the family missed me. She said the house felt empty and that the whole family needed me there. "Just come home, Sarah," she wept, "just this once." That phrase, "just this once," was how every single favor for my family started. But looking at her tears, I did not see the manipulation. I only saw my mother. I packed my bags the next morning. I drove 6 hours through a blinding snowstorm from Chicago to Columbus, Ohio. My back was aching from the tension. My vehicle was filled with suitcases containing expensive gifts for my brother's children, Lily and Noah. I had the latest toys, the warmest clothes, everything a generous aunt should bring. As I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, my heart was pounding a little. I was stupidly hoping my mother would hug me like she used to when I was a child. In the past, my visits were met with cold shoulders or immediate demands. But this time, as I walked up the snowy path, the front door flew open. It was warm. The air smelled of roasted beef and cinnamon. "Sarah!" my father, Frank, shouted. He did not look at my suitcase with greed, not yet. He looked at me. He limped down the porch steps, favoring his bad knee, the knee I had paid to have treated months ago. He wrapped his arms around me. It was a real hug. "Look at you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "The prodigal daughter returns." My mother, Linda, came out wiping her hands on an apron. She did not ask about my drive. She did not ask for money. She just kissed my cheek and ushered me inside, away from the cold. "We are just so glad you are here," she whispered. My brother Mike came up from the basement. He was 34 years old, yet he still carried himself like a teenager. Usually, he would make a sarcastic comment about my fancy city life, but tonight, he smiled. "Hey, Sarah," he said, "let me help you with those bags." I felt something inside my chest relax. A knot of tension I had been carrying for years finally loosened. I thought, maybe they really have changed. Maybe they just missed me. We sat down for dinner. The table was set with the good china. My mother had cooked all my favorite dishes. We laughed, we told stories. For an hour, we were the perfect American family. But then, the cracks began to show. It was subtle at first. My mother reached out and touched the sleeve of my blazer. "This fabric is exquisite," she said, her eyes lingering on my handbag sitting on the chair. "You are doing so well, Sarah. It must be nice not to worry about the heating bill." My father shifted in his chair and groaned, rubbing his knee. "Is the pain bad, Dad?" I asked. "It is fine," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "The doctor said I need surgery, but you know how insurance is. We will figure it out. We always do." He looked at me with sad, watery eyes. It was a look designed to break my heart. "We do not want to burden you," my mother added softly. "You work so hard. You deserve your money." They said the words, but the tone suggested the opposite. They were laying the foundation. They were softening me up with roast beef and compliments so that when the hammer dropped, I would not see it coming. I went to sleep that night in my old bedroom, surrounded by faded posters and memories. I felt loved. I felt safe. I had absolutely no idea that downstairs, on the kitchen counter, lay a document that would destroy this illusion before the sun even came up. I closed my eyes, thinking I was a daughter. I did not know that to them, I was just an investment account with a heartbeat. The morning sun in Ohio is deceptive. It looks bright and innocent on the snow, but it does not tell you about the ice hiding underneath. I woke up the next morning feeling rested for the first time in months. I walked down to the kitchen, following the smell of fresh coffee. The house was quiet. My parents were still asleep. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the granite counter. My mother's iPad was sitting there, propped up next to the sugar bowl. It chimed with a notification. I am not a snooping person. I respect privacy. But the screen lit up, and I saw my own name. It was an email confirmation. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I tapped the screen. The email opened, and suddenly the coffee in my stomach turned into acid. It was a booking confirmation for a family winter getaway at a luxury lodge in Aspen. I scrolled down, my hands starting to shake. 6 plane tickets, 3 suites, a private ski instructor for the children. The total cost was sitting there at the bottom in bold black numbers, $14,000. And right underneath the total was the payment method, Visa ending in 4092. That was my card. That was my business credit card that I used for company expenses. I felt a switch inside my chest flip. The warm welcome, the roast beef, the hugs, it all started to make sense. They were not happy to see me. They were happy to see their walking ATM. I looked around the kitchen. Suddenly, the house did not feel like a home. It felt like a crime scene. I opened the junk drawer under the counter looking for a napkin, but instead I found a stack of envelopes shoved to the back. They were unopened. I pulled them out. Past due. Final notice. Urgent action required. I opened one from the bank. It was regarding the mortgage. A few years ago, my parents put me down as a co-borrower just to get a better interest rate. They told me it was just a formality. They promised it would never affect me. But the letter in my hand said the mortgage was 2 months behind. And worse, there was paperwork for a second loan, a home equity line of credit, taken out against the house to pay off credit card consolidation for my brother Mike. "Good morning, sunshine." I spun around. Mike was standing in the doorway. He was wearing his sunglasses indoors and holding a gym bag, looking relaxed. He saw the papers in my hand. He saw the iPad. He did not look ashamed. He did not apologize. He actually smirked. "You are up early," he said, walking over to the fridge to grab a juice. "Mike," I said, my voice trembling, "what is this? You booked a trip to Aspen on my card?" He shrugged, popping the tab on his soda. "Relax, Sarah. Mom and Dad have been stressed. They deserve a break. We figured since you are doing so well with that big city job, you would want to treat the family. You always say we should take care of ourselves." "I did not agree to this," I said. "This is theft." Mike laughed. It was a dry, dismissive sound. "Don't be dramatic. It's a family trip. You are going to be there anyway to watch the kids so I can get some skiing in. You know Lily and Noah are a handful." He looked at me like I was the help, like I was the hired nanny. "Besides," he added, taking a sip of his drink, "you are rich. You won't even miss the money. Don't ruin Christmas by being stingy." He walked out of the kitchen whistling. I stood there alone. The warm kitchen felt freezing cold. I realized then that the brother who carried my bags last night did not exist. The father who hugged me was just keeping me close enough to pick my pockets. I looked at the stack of bills. I looked at the Aspen itinerary that was laid out like a glossy promise. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply closed the iPad. I went upstairs to my room, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account. I downloaded 3 years of statements, every transfer, every loan, every bill I paid because they promised to pay me back next month. If they wanted to talk about money, we were going to talk about money. But this time, I was going to be the one holding the receipts. They say you should never discuss religion or politics at the dinner table. In the Jenkins household, the forbidden word was accountability. Dinner that night was a masterpiece of denial. My mother, Linda, had set the table with holiday crackers and candles. My father, Frank, sat at the head of the table like a king holding court. My brother Mike was scrolling through his telephone, ignoring his children who were spinning in circles on the tile floor. I sat there watching them eat the roast beef I had effectively paid for. I felt that switch in my chest flip again. The fear was gone. The guilt was gone. All that was left was cold, hard mathematics. "So," my mother said, wiping her mouth with a napkin. She reached for the glossy brochure on the counter. I was thinking we could go over the itinerary for Aspen. The kids are so excited. She tapped the paper. See? This is why we needed you here, honey. The kids will stay with you in the chalet during the day while Mike and your father ski. It will be a real vacation. She said it so casually. You will babysit, you will pay, we will play. I did not smile. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. Actually, I said, my voice calm but loud enough to cut through the room. Before we go anywhere, we need to talk about money, Mike groaned, dropping his fork. Sarah, seriously? Right now? Yes, right now. I stood up and connected my laptop to the large television screen on the wall. The room went silent. The image of the Aspen brochure disappeared, replaced by a stark white spreadsheet. Honey, my mother said, her voice trembling, can we please not start a fight? We have been under so much stress. I am not starting a fight, I replied. I am finishing one. I pointed to the screen. The rows were color-coded and brutally clear. Last March, I began, you called me because the mortgage was 2 months behind. I wired $1,200. In June, Mike's credit card was maxed out. I sent $2,500. When the water heater broke, $900. When Dad needed new tires for the truck, $600. I scrolled down slowly. The numbers blurred into a long red river of debt. This does not count the streaming services, the cell phone plans, the grocery deliveries, or the random emergency requests that always seem to happen right around Black Friday sales. My father's face turned a deep shade of purple. This is not fair, he snapped. You are making us look like bad people. I am not making you look like anything, I said. I am just showing you the receipts. I clicked to the bottom of the spreadsheet. A single number sat there in bold font. In the last 36 months, I said quietly, I have sent this house just over $68,000. The silence in the room was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out. Mike blinked hard. My mother put her hand over her mouth. No, my mother whispered, that cannot be right. No way. It is right, I said. And that brings me to the trip to Aspen. I clicked to the next tab. The reservation appeared on the screen. My father sat up straighter, looking defiant. Those are our tickets, he barked. Do not touch them. I do not have to touch them, I said. I already did. I pointed to the status line. Canceled. 3 days ago, I called the resort, I told them. Since the booking was made with my card and my name, I had every right. The package has been refunded to my account. My father lurched up from his chair. He looked like he wanted to hit the screen. You had no right, he shouted. You promised. You are punishing us. I am not punishing you, I said, closing my laptop. I am stopping you. There is no vacation, not without me, not without my money. Get out, my father hissed. He pointed a shaking finger at the front door. If you are going to hold money over our heads, you are not welcome in this house. My mother looked at me, eyes wide. Sarah, please fix this. Just fix it. I looked at her. She did not want me. She wanted the fixer. She wanted the banker. I'm done fixing it, I said, and I'm taking my name off the mortgage. I spoke to the bank this morning. You will have to qualify on your own. We can't afford that, Mike yelled, panic rising in his voice. We will lose the house. Then you should get a job, Mike, I said. You are 34 years old. I did not wait for dinner to finish. I did not wait for dessert. I grabbed my purse. I did not even take my suitcase. I walked to the door, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. You are abandoning your family, my father screamed after me. Don't come crying to us when the city chews you up. I opened the door. The winter wind hit my face, biting and cold, but it felt cleaner than the air inside that kitchen. I am not abandoning you, I said, looking back at them one last time. I am giving you the chance to be adults. I stepped out into the snow and pulled the door shut. Sound of a heavy door slamming, the sound of wind howling, footsteps crunching on snow. I was alone. It was Christmas Eve. I had nowhere to go. But as I walked toward my car, I realized something strange. For the first time in my life, I was free. The drive back to Chicago took 6 hours. I did not turn on the radio. I just listened to the tires on the ice and the pounding of my own heart. When I finally unlocked the door to my apartment, it was 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. The apartment smelled of fresh paint and nothing else. It was empty. I had no furniture yet, just a mattress on the floor and a few boxes. I sat down on the hardwood floor, still wearing my winter coat, and brewed a cup of cheap grocery store coffee. In the silence, without my mother's sighing or my father's television blaring, the doubts rushed in. What if I had gone too far? What if they really could not keep the lights on without me? I almost picked up the telephone. I almost apologized. But then I remembered the way Mike had smirked at me. I remembered my father screaming, "Get out!" So I did the only thing I could do. I opened my laptop and finished what I started. I went through the last few automatic payments that were still active. The Disney Plus subscription, the Hulu bundle, the Spotify family plan, the cloud storage for Mike's gaming clips. Click, cancel, confirm. Each confirmation email felt like cutting a string that had been wrapped around my ribs for a decade. The retaliation did not come in the form of a phone call. It came from Facebook. A week later, my friend Emma sent me a screenshot with a simple message. "Have you seen this?" It was my father's profile. He had written a long, dramatic status update. He did not use my name, but he did not have to. "It is sad when children forget who raised them the second they get a fancy job," he wrote. "We gave her everything, and she left us with nothing right before Christmas. Pray for us. Some people care more about money than blood." Underneath, the comments were piling up. Neighbors, distant cousins, church friends. "So sorry, Frank. Kids these days are so ungrateful. If she will not help, maybe start a GoFundMe. We will share it." My stomach twisted like I had swallowed ice. He was rewriting the story. He was turning himself into the victim and me into the villain. For a moment, I wanted to scream. I wanted to post the spreadsheet. I wanted to show them the $68,000. But I realized that fighting him in the comments section would only drag me back into the mud. So I blocked him. I blocked my cousins. I blocked the neighbors. And then I watched from a distance as reality finally hit the Jenkins household. Without my invisible paycheck, their lifestyle began to collapse immediately. The first sign was the text messages from my mother. They started frantic and confused. "Did you talk to the bank? We got a letter about reassessing the loan. The IRS sent something about the gift tax. Why are they asking questions?" I did not reply. I'd already told my financial advisor to report the situation to ensure my name was clear of their debts. Then came the physical consequences. I heard through a mutual friend that my father's prized pickup truck, the one I had paid to put new tires on, was repossessed early one Tuesday morning. A tow truck simply hooked it up and dragged it away while the neighbors watched. It was the kind of public embarrassment my parents used to gossip about when it happened to other people. My mother began selling her things. The designer handbags she used to brag about on Instagram appeared on Facebook Marketplace. The caption said "barely used," but I knew exactly how many times she had carried them to brunch. And Mike, my arrogant brother, finally had to face the world without a safety net. He sent me one text message during that time. It was not an apology. It was a picture of his gaming computer listed for sale online. "Happy now?" he wrote. I looked at the message. I took a sip of my coffee in my quiet, empty apartment. Actually, I whispered to myself, yes. For the first time, they were paying their own bills. For the first time, the consequences belonged to the people who made the decisions. It was lonely. My apartment was silent, but it was a peaceful silence. I realized that winter in Chicago is not so cold when you are no longer setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. By the time spring arrived in Chicago, my life had become quiet. The silence in my apartment was no longer terrifying. It was peaceful. I had focused on my job. I had started to decorate my home one paycheck at a time. I bought a secondhand couch. I hung up cheap fairy lights that made the living room look warmer than it had any right to feel. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, someone knocked on my door. I checked the peephole and my stomach dropped. It was my mother, Linda. She looked smaller somehow. She was not wearing her usual full face of makeup or her styled hair. She was just a tired woman clutching a reusable grocery bag to her chest like a shield. I opened the door. "Mom?" She stepped inside, shaking the rain off her coat. She turned in a slow circle, taking in the small space, the view of the wet city, and my mismatched furniture. "I did not know it looked like this," she said softly. I always pictured you in something bigger, something fancier. I shrugged. This is what I can afford, Mom. This is what it looks like when I am not paying for 2 households. She winced as if my words physically hurt her. She sat down on the edge of my new couch. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Here, she said. I opened it. Inside was a check. It was not for $68,000, not even close, but it was something. It is from selling things, she said quickly, her eyes shiny with tears. I sold the handbags. I sold some jewelry. I even sold that coffee table you hated. And I have been picking up extra shifts at the office. I stared at the check. It was not about the amount. It was about the fact that my mother, who had spent years acting like my money grew on trees, was finally admitting that money cost something. Your father still says you betrayed us, she whispered. He tells everyone you turned on your family because you think you are better than us. She looked down at her hands. But I cannot keep saying it, she continued. Not after seeing those papers, not after the bank letters. We used you, Sarah. I used you. I sat next to her, leaving a little space between us. I am not asking you to hate him, I said. I am just asking you to stop letting him rewrite history so he does not have to feel guilty. She nodded, wiping her face. Then she told me the news. Mike was working. He was driving late nights doing delivery shifts. He had moved his children into a smaller apartment, but at least it was a place he paid for himself. He wanted me to tell you thank you for the spreadsheet, she said. I actually laughed, a short, surprise sound. I did not make that for him, I said. I made it for me. My mother stood up to leave. She looked at me carefully, hope fragile in her eyes. Do you think someday we could have a holiday where you come over and it is just dinner? She asked. No money talk, no hidden bills, just us? My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes immediately. I wanted to be the good daughter again. But I remembered the cold wind in Ohio. I remembered the loneliness. Maybe, I said, but that only happens if everyone in that house understands I am not the safety net anymore. If I come, it is because I want to, not because there is a payment due. She nodded and hugged me. It was a real hug this time. When she left, I slipped the check into a drawer. I did not cash it right away. I just needed to know that for once the flow of money was pointed in the opposite direction. That night, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Facebook. My father had posted again, another vague status about family turning their backs. I looked at the screen. I did not feel angry. I just felt done. I muted him. Then finally, I blocked his number. It felt less like slamming a door and more like closing a wound that refused to heal. I sat alone on my couch, looking at the city lights of Chicago. My apartment was quiet. My bank account was mine. My future was mine. Here is what I learned. Family does not stop being family just because you say no. The people who truly love you will eventually adjust to your boundaries. The ones who were only there for what you could provide will call you selfish the moment you stop bleeding for them. It hurts. It is lonely. But standing there in my own living room, I realized that distance was the only way to stop drowning in someone else's bad decisions. I took a sip of my coffee. I was alone, yes, but for the first time in my life, I was free.